Welcome everybody to today's episode of the Dough Doctor. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host and baking expert, Chef Colette. If you're watching on the replay, thank you so much for watching as well. And know you can just message me if you have any questions that come up if you're not on the live broadcast and you're having trouble, if we're not live, there's no way to drop the questions into the comments below. And welcome everybody. If you have questions, baking questions, really any kind of questions, just drop them in the comments below, and as we move along, I will get them answered. Welcome, welcome. It's so great to see you guys. July 1st, bakers! We have a whole fresh month stretched out in front of us. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love that. I think that's just awesome to have, it's like a fresh start. So yeah, pretty cool. We are getting into summer, which does change our baking lives a little bit. I have a couple questions to answer, and then our baker Patty, a couple weeks ago, she asked for, well, I had pro-offered the question. I was like, would you guys like a demo on scones? And Patty responded first and she said yes, and then several of you dropped in yes, 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 yes. So our demo today is going to be on scones that I'm going to use the mixer. Now you don't need to use the mixer to make these, but for many cut-in doughs, which a scone is a cut-in dough, we can go ahead and use our mixers. I know many of you have mixers. And a couple episodes back, I actually asked if you had named your mixer and what color your mixer was. And as I said, if you had named your mixer, what was your mixer's name? Today, I'm gonna be using the Silver Surfer. I want you to be able to see, so I have my glass bowl and then the silver KitchenAid. I just dropped the head down. And so we're using the Silver Surfer today. Blanche is the white mixer, very appropriately named. She's on the shelf today. We do use her quite a little bit. So welcome to everyone. I see folks dropping in, and it's so great to see everybody. All right, let's get started with those questions. And before I get started, any baking questions that have been running around your head, please drop them into the comments below. Hello, hello. Purple Goddess Soap Company. Her KitchenAid mixer is raspberry ice. Sounds beautiful. Did you guys know that you can get your mixers custom painted? And in the, I will find that website where they do that, and I'll put it in this week's the blog post that will have the scone recipe. But first I want to jump on the questions and get those settled, and then we'll go on to demo. So our first question came from our baker Yuki, and Yuki asked, can we use frozen peaches in the galette? Remember last week we made the peach galette with the really lovely dough that went together in literally no time flat? And the answer is yes. You can absolutely use frozen peaches when you're making a galette, a crostata, which is the Italian term for a galette, or a pie, or any dessert that calls for sliced peaches, fresh peaches. Frozen can be used. Now, I'm going to just tell you really quickly about frozen fruit. I know we always think fresh is best, and for the most part, it absolutely is if the fruit we're using is in season. So right now it's peach season and there's peaches everywhere, so it's not a problem. But what if you love peaches and you want to use them year round? What about these frozen peaches? Frozen peaches, usually they're the strain of peaches, they're Alberta peaches or Freestone peaches, and they come away very easy from the pit. They're bred that way. They're yellow peaches, they're juicy and delicious, and frozen fruit is grown for the frozen fruit packing industry, and it is harvested within a few days of its finest moment, all right? So just know that these peaches, whatever frozen fruit you buy, it was processed when it was primo, all right? So, but how do we, so it's perfectly fine to use, be assured of the quality. The only issue is when we freeze fruit, right? When fruit is processed and frozen, all the ice crystals from the freezing are now inside the fruit. So when the fruit thaws, you guys all know, it's going to be a lot more watery. So depending on what we're doing, we want that juice. Because if we're using fresh fruit and we're trying to do a filling or we're trying to do a compote, we usually have to add a little bit of liquid, all right? So if we thaw our frozen fruit, then we naturally get the juice. So my answer is yes, use frozen fruit. 1, yes, it's fine. 2, it's a great product. 3, you want to thaw the frozen fruit overnight in the refrigerator. Just dump the amount in a bowl, put it in the fridge, cover it, leave it in there overnight, let it thaw completely, and then you'll have plenty of juice for the filling. Now you're going to add, like in the galette recipe, we added sugar to the peaches to draw out more liquid. All the steps are going to be the same. The only exception in this frozen fruit world is if you're making something like a blueberry muffin or a berry cake or a scone with frozen fruit. You want to keep that fruit frozen. And there is a hack. It's been around since the beginning of baking time, and that is, if when you're doing that, using frozen fruit in a muffin, a scone, or a cake, and you don't want the fruit to drop to the bottom of the cake, well then what you want to do is work with it frozen, and toss the fruit in a little bit of flour before adding it to the recipe. And then they'll stay more intact and they'll be suspended in the batter for the most part, as opposed to dropping to the bottom. All right? So, oh, and I really, really apologize. My week got away from me and I forgot to find out how I let you guys come in for live demo, like to join the show. And I swear, I will, I'm going to try. I'm going to see if I can get, wouldn't want to join, and I don't think it's going to work. And again, my bakers, I apologize. Yeah, I am not, well, for next time, for sure. All right, so that's the answer about the peaches. I get a lot of questions, second question again, and that is about sugar-free baking. And I don't work with sugar-free sweeteners at all. It's pretty much 100% sugar and liquid-related sweeteners like honey, molasses, maple syrup, and agave. And what I have done, because working with sugar-free sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, is a real science. So bakers, if that's what you need to do, I really recommend you go to whatever is the sweetener you're buying. They have a website. They have a team of dedicated experts developing their recipes. So I hate to send you away, but I know in this case I need to. So we had a question about sugar-free baking, the Splenda website, like all of them are so extensive. All right. That was basically our first two questions. So I've got two bakers who wanted to join the show, and I'm going to see if one more time, if I can do that. Dr. John times 2. Nope, it's not going to work. Again, that's on me. That's on me. If you have questions, those of you who wanted to join the show, please put them in the comments, and I will catch them here. And then again, I promise, going into a little bit of a vacation, so I'll be able to catch up on things. Yeah, my day job really ramped up. For those of you who are new to the show, I teach for Scoffier School of Culinary Arts. I'm one of their baking and pastry instructors, and sometimes it can get really, really busy. So yeah, if any of you ever have questions about going to baking and pastry school, please let me know, because I can talk about that all day long. Anyhow, speaking of learning, that was a piggyback. Speaking of learning and education, I did want to touch on my Wednesday post. On Wednesday, I talked about baking skill sets. It was just a stand-up where I just talked about, if you bakers, if you want to take on a new baking skill set, like for example, you are great at making cakes, but you're really interested in yeasted doughs, maybe the series we did in the winter with all the beautiful breads we produced, you want to do more of that, you want to expand that knowledge. How long does it actually take? Well, first of all, in order to get from first experiencing something to become incredible, it's about 20 hours of focused practice. All right. And so I want to encourage you guys to not get, I want to encourage you to not get discouraged. All right. Know that it doesn't take 10,000 hours, even though that's a great book. The people who work for 10,000 hours on something become true experts. It's more like Serena Williams and Michael Phelps, not exactly for those of us who maybe want to just learn, how to master croissants at home, or how to, mask a cake beautifully. That's about 20 hours or 2 weeks of 45 minutes a day. Now, I had mentioned that I teach culinary students, and I have done this work for a long time, and I have seen their skill sets. I know this works because I've seen in real time students' skill sets improved with just having to work 10 focused hours a week on whatever the lessons are in that particular part of the curriculum. So I know this to be absolutely true. So I wanted to talk about that because you might have wondered, where is she coming from? That's where I'm coming from. And I got the idea, like it gelled in my brain, from a really good TEDx talk by a writer named Josh Kaufman. And I'll put that also with the KitchenAid painters in the blog post that'll match today's recipe. All right. So let's see. No baking questions. No questions in the comments. So let's get started with demo. This is a master recipe. And what that means is I may be flavoring these scones today with orange and dried cranberries because that's what I have here in the kitchen. But you can take this scone, remove the cranberries and the orange, and put in any flavorings you like, or no flavorings. Maybe you like to serve scones with really beautiful jam. Maybe you whip up clotted cream. Maybe you go all out and you don't need any currants or raisins or dried blueberries or cranberries in your scones. All right. Oh, by the way, what has happened to currants? I live in the heart of Los Angeles. This is a city of 14 million people, and I have been unable to find the little baby raisins that we know as currants. If anybody knows where the currants have all gone, please put it in the comments below. All right, so I have a batch of these scones already made. I want to show you what we're going for. So I just pushed the Silver Surfer out of the way a little bit so you can see. We have these really beautiful, I'm really happy with the bake. This is pretty much a perfect bake on the scones, and they are the thickness. Sometimes if they're too thick, they'll be underdone in the center. If they're too thin, they'll be like hockey pucks and they dry out really quickly. And this goes also for regular biscuits, like American biscuits. So a really good height is about 5/8 to 3/4 inches. Okay? All right. Oh, our baker AC is going to check at Whole Foods. I didn't check at Whole Foods, but that is, I was looking for other things at Whole Foods, but I will check there for currants. They're just really nice in baked goods. You know, they're kind of small. I was watching an episode of the Great British Baking Show, and they were making a technical challenge, and the challenge was Garibaldi biscuits, which are a really lovely Italian shortbread cookie layered with raisins or currants. And I was like, I want to make those. And then I couldn't find the currants. So what do? We just chop up raisins, right? But the currants would be, they're really, really great. So anyway, thank you, AC. That's awesome. So that's what we're doing. So let's get started with this scone. If I have anybody in the audience who ever took any of my live classes at Sur La Table here at the farmer's market in Los Angeles, I pointed like it's right there. It really isn't, but that's okay. It's there in my heart. For 8 years, every weekend, I used to teach live in-person classes at Sur La Table at the Grove. I actually took that job because I wanted to pay off a kitchen renovation quickly, and then I ended up staying for 8 years because it was so much fun. And one thing about the classes, there was always a snack for the students. And oftentimes, especially early in the morning, trying to mise en place and get the class set up, the quickest snack I could make were these scones. So this is actually, on the little index card, it says Sur La Table scone. So Sur La Table, thank you for 8 years. And yes, absolutely, we could do pumpkin scones. But you know, that brings up a really interesting thing about liquid and ingredients. And so just really quickly, in a nutshell, we would have to remove some of the liquid to compensate for the high moisture content of the pumpkin, and it works the same with bananas. Now, the thing with pumpkin scones and banana scones, they're rarely as flaky because just the density of the pumpkin, the density of the banana, but we don't really look for them to be flaky. And actually, Starbucks bakers do a really, unless they've changed at least the last pumpkin scone I had at Starbucks, the texture was really nice, but I didn't quite see that flake. Again, that's from the ingredients. So absolutely we can, but that it just requires a little bit of math to pull out the liquid. Okay, so now here, let me just pull my mise en place. Now you might be thinking, Chef Colette, cranberry and orange, dude, it's not fall. I know, but it doesn't really matter. Just know you can customize you can customize the flavor of these scones, as I was saying. And we're gonna start with the flour, sugar. These are not a terribly sweet scone. I have baking powder and baking soda. If you have the baking soda in the box, and bakers, this is a $64,000 tip. You scale out your baking soda and then sift it. Even if you're going to sift it again, sift it over the dry ingredients. The baking soda in the box tends to clump quite a little bit. So I find that I will just take that extra step, because there's nothing worse, I think, well, there are worse things, but that little pocket of baking soda, oh, no, not gonna do that. So now I'm attaching the paddle. Again, you do this by hand. You can do this by hand. We do this all the time. I've got the Silver Surfer in the in frame so you guys can see. And I'm just gonna mix for about 30 seconds on low speed just to incorporate those ingredients. I'm not gonna do a big formal sift here. And the baking soda that I'm using was actually Trader Joe's brand, which is pretty granular, which is unusual for baking soda, so I don't have to do the double sift. All right, and now I also have in my microplane some lovely orange zest, and I'm going to add it now so that it begins to really perfume into the dry ingredients. And now the butter is refrigerated, so I'm going to step out frame. And I'm back. I'm going to turn off the mixer and I'm going to drop in cold cubed butter, all right, on low speed. And we're just going to cut this butter up using the paddle until it looks like oatmeal flakes. Okay? And you can pulse it. You can turn it on and off. If you're in a hurry, you can make it a little bit faster. But we don't want the dry to fly out of the mixer. And I have a question for you bakers while we're mixing. I know AC saw it because she commented, but did anybody see the post from Friday with the ganache kiss cookies? They were amazing. So I just want to encourage you, if you have any odd bits of odds and ends around, in the freezer, in the refrigerator, I don't have the corner on that kind of creativity. Just have fun and put things together. And then, of course, tag me. So AC has a question. What are my thoughts on frozen grated butter? You could do that. That's fine. But the problem, well, it's not a problem, but it will go in very fast. And it's the larger pieces of butter that give us the flake, So the frozen grated butter, some of the doughs we've been doing over the past several weeks where we took the mixture to almost like crumb topping, that's perfect for your frozen grated butter. But if you're looking for some flake, you guys see that flake there? Then you want to use chunks of butter. AC, that's a marvelous, marvelous question. The genesis of the grated butter happened in the 80s. And it's just really it was genius. But again, the only problem is it's a real time saver, but I would save it for those doughs where we're like the sweet tart dough and the pasta frolla, where we really take them down to like crumb topping, and we really don't have, larger pieces of butter in our mix. You know, we don't go for that corn. We take it beyond the corn flake, beyond the oatmeal flake, beyond the peas. What did I say last week? Chickpeas, right? I said, you're going to take this till it's the size, till, yeah. So that's my suggestion. All right. So you saw those baked scones. They have a nice texture, a little bit of flake, you know. So I'm not going for croissants here, but I just want a little bit of lightness. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to add the heavy cream. Now you can use any dairy you want. You can also make these vegan by using cold vegan butter, and you can use any plant-based milk, soy, oat, or almond. I'm using heavy cream. You can also use buttermilk. I have a question for you bakers, and has anybody ever worked with the powdered buttermilk? The powdered buttermilk with the chef on the, it's like a little tin, like a baking powder tin on steroids, and then it has the chef on it. Anybody ever try that? Just curious. All right, now I have dumped the cream in, and I don't want to overmix, but I don't want to undermix. So this is basically the Goldilocks school of baking. We're going to turn the mixer off and on until it is just right. Sherry says, our baker Sherry says no. Chef Daniel says yes. Chef Daniel, put it in the comments. Did you like it? Yuki, let us know. Did you like the buttermilk powder? It feels a little bit pricey, but here's the thing. It feels like it could be a great money saver because you're not having to buy a quart of buttermilk, and you know, buttermilk has a really great shelf life because it's cultured and acidified, but it eventually will have to be, you know, it can go bad. All right, bakers, we'll put a pin in the buttermilk, all right? And I'll put a link to that too. So I have 3 links I got to keep track of. Okay, no problem. So what I want to show you bakers is we are at the point in the mix where we have quite a bit of powder on the bottom. But here we've got about half is powder and half is beginning to be like a cohesive mass, all right? So what I'm going to do is, again, you all know that a bowl scraper, I'm just going to sort of toss it. Now I'm going to get in here and pulse on low speed until it becomes a cohesive mass. And we've learned this before. You want to be meticulous about scraping down the paddle because moisture and wetter batter and dough sticks to the paddle, and we need that moisture to mix thoroughly in. You could also use a food processor. I'm almost contemplating, my TikTok efforts have been a disaster. I'll just tell you, bakers, but I am thinking of maybe doing a TikTok channel using my all about working with your food processor. Mine is very vintage, and it could actually be comedic. We'll see. If you have any ideas for a good TikTok channel for me, please put them in the comments below. Oh, Yuki says it's very convenient. Oh, and the other thing you can do for, I think Yuki, this is our baker Yuki, has a question about regular milk in 10 minutes. You can make buttermilk by adding 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar and lemon juice to regular milk. Let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and then it's ready to use. Okay? All right. Sorry, I got carried away there. Okay, I'm going to stop. And then we still have a little bit of powder, but I'm going to grab it with my bowl scraper here. Oh, goodness. the cranberries. Life is so exciting, bakers. But what's so fun is we get to be together. That's what I love about it. All right, cranberries are in. We're in good shape. I'm going to get the Silver Surfer out of the way. All right. Yeah, the lemon juice or apple cider vinegar in milk works really well. I always think that quart of buttermilk is kind of a luxury. Really does open a lot of possibilities, you know. It's good if you have buttermilk, real buttermilk hanging around. It's a good excuse to make pancakes. All right, so now look at this, bakers. We have a little bit of powder, not much, a few rogue cranberries. You can see it right here in frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the dough into the dry, and I'm just going to fold it. I'm not even going to grab the rolling pin. If you have hot hands, you might want to use your bowl scraper. We've talked about hot hands and baking before. If you have hot hands, you know it. So what we want to do is make sure there's no dry, one more fold. And what that folding does, see those layers? I mean, we are on this show obsessed with folding. It's pretty sexy. But now I need to put everything together. Sometimes those teaching moments, I don't want to screw things up with my teaching moments, but that's why we're here. All right, so I'm going to flour my hands. I'm going to actually give it one more fold. I'm going to give it a little bit of a turn here. I'm going to roll it out to a 4x12 rectangle. And I hope you all have gotten your yardsticks, or, you know, get a yardstick at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever, cut it in half, sand it down, and then keep it in your kitchen, because it's just great. All right, here's the rolling pin. So we're going for 3/4 of an inch thick, and we are gonna get it 4x12. And we're gonna take our bowl scraper, and we're gonna square off the corners and straighten the edges. This makes 8 scones, and it uses 1 stick of butter. Chef Daniel says that he bought buttermilk by mistake in Paris and made cheese souffle with it, and it worked. So instead of regular milk, Chef, is that what happened? I would guess that would be really, really great. And then, and our baker Yuki is asking about clotted cream. So clotted cream is like heavy cream. Heavy cream is 40% butter fat, and clotted cream is even more. I don't have the exact percentage. I will get that by our next show, but it whips up. You throw it in the mixer cold. It whips up, and I'm sure bakers in the audience who've had it will chime in. If you are a dairy person, clotted cream is heaven on earth. I worked at one luxury hotel in Boston that used to serve these elaborate afternoon teas on the weekends especially, and the clotted cream comes from Devon in the UK, and we would just, they brought it in from Devon. We would just dump all those empty the bottles, cute little bottles into the mixer and whip it away, and there was very little left over. All right, so now I'm going to grab my ruler. So yes, clotted cream is like the most luxurious whipped cream you can imagine. I think they have special cows, something. You know, it's like Kerrygold butter. I think the cows are part of it. They live a beautiful life. Okay, so we're about 4x12, and we've got squared off corners and straight sides. And I'm just going to, you know, in a professional kitchen, we would you know, we grab our bowl scraper and kind of use it as a guide, or bench scraper, and use it as a guide. You could also measure. I think you guys like to measure, so I'm going to measure. I'm taking my ruler that I've made you go out and get. They're always under $1. But it is important to sand them. And I'm just going to mark at the 3-inch mark. Okay, all right. And then we're just going to, I have a knife, I have a regular knife here. We're just going to make a clean cut. And then if your knife sticks, just sprinkle it with a little flour. And then I've got a rectangle. So I'm going to cut my rectangle for triangles. You could roll this out and cut it with a cutter, whatever you want to do, bakers. You are you're the chef in your kitchen. Once you learn the technique, my work is done, and you go off to your creative endeavors. That's my role. Okay, I have a sheet pan lined with a silk pad, but you want to have parchment paper, that's fine. It's very important to have the pan lined because we want a little bit of protection for our scones. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to brush them with heavy cream, because the lactic acid in the heavy cream, if you had made them with buttermilk, you'd brush them with buttermilk. If you used milk, you'd brush them with milk. Whatever you used in the dough, almond milk, soy milk, if you use a plant-based milk, you would brush them with that. So I actually had that set up here. And on any of your doughs, bakers, any excess flour, you are going to brush away. I just have a little bit here. I'll grab my dry brush out of the bowl. And usually there's a little bit left over your measuring cup. So these scones look good. They're not too thick, not too thin. They're just right. And you can finesse them. Remember, there's always a finesse opportunity, you know. And now they're going to go in the refrigerator for a 30-minute chill. They could chill in the fridge overnight because we want the fat in the scones to solidify. And that's very, very important because that's what gives us our flake. We've talked about that before. On the science side, what's happening is the proteins in the flour and the other ingredients, whatever protein matrix we've created in this dough, that protein needs to coagulate. We want the starch to gelatinize as much as possible before the butter begins to melt. And that's what gives us this little bit of this flake here. All right. So these are going in the fridge. And before we go, I want to teach you the best flat icing. And some of you former students, maybe I have current students on, I don't know, but you'll be like, yes, this is the one I always make. All right, bakers, I had to do it. Here are the leftover ganache kisses from yesterday's post. And I probably should stop teasing you, and I should write out how I did this on the website. Because if you have, dough hanging around, ganache hanging around, and chocolate wafers, they could be white, they could be milk, they could be semi-sweet. These were fab, just fab. They remind me of an Italian cookie called Bacchi di Dama. I probably murdered that pronunciation. Let me know if I did. But ladies' kisses. All right, so our finale is this wonderful flat icing because I'm going to dress up the baked scones. So I have sifted powdered sugar in a nice big bowl. I have 28 grams of orange juice. Now, if they were not orange flavored, I could use milk. If they were a lemon blueberry scone, I could do lemon juice and lemon zest. But the real winner in this is a little bit of melted butter. And don't worry, I will have this recipe on the website with the scone. I had to melt it in the microwave, so it's got plastic wrap on it. I'm gonna whisk this. It's dreamy. And the reason it's so good is that little bit of butter. If it's too thick, you can thin it out, but this proportion is really perfect. I found it in an obscure baking book. I don't even remember the title at this point, but years ago when I taught at Cordon Bleu, I used to hang out in the library a lot, and God, you could open a book, and if the universe was in concert, there was a recipe like this. So there we go, all right? Now I have a little bit of a floury mess, so I'm just gonna scrape, and I'm gonna grab the scones. You can get all fancy, you guys. You can, and I know this is more American, you know, to ice them, but it's kind of good. It's kind of fun. So you guys can see, right? Yes, you can see. And you can let it just drip. Well, it's not dripping very well. It would have to be a little bit thinner. You could pop it in a cornet or a piping bag and pipe away. Or you could just gild that lily. All right, let me get this out of the way. This is what I'm going to do. And you can just spread it on. And that is pretty sexy. Oh, I wish you guys were here. And then I could just bring out a bunch of coffee and tea and serve up these scones because they smell fabulous. Remember, this is the master recipe. Once you learn the technique, you can flavor you can change out the dried fruit, you could change the zest, you could do whatever you want. And as always, if you have questions, you know, you have an idea, send me a message. I'm more than happy what's it called? Troubleshoot. Oh my goodness. It's just like out of my little head at this moment. Spitball. More than happy to spitball with you. All right. Okay, you guys. So this is our master scone recipe. I don't know if our baker Patty is in the audience, but Patty, this is for you and for all of you. I hope you give these a try. Now, next week, bakers, I am going to be on the beach in Hawaii. So we are not going to have the show next week. I'm going to take a little bit of vacation. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Today is the 1st. So I think we'll be back. That's the 15th for another episode of the Dough Doctor, but I will be able to answer questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to tour a bunch of bakeries in Hawaii and get inspired and bring back some great ideas so we can have, you know, just to inspire us for our summer baking. Thank you guys, and stay safe, keep baking, and any questions, no matter where I am, I'm always there for you. Thank you so much. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.